Okay, we're back to talk about the rest of part three of The True Believer by Hoffer. And I believe last time we left off talking about make believe and the present. And I just want to start. We'll just pick right up where we left off last time, I guess, is a good place to start. So he was talking about how make-believe and deprecation of the present, talking down about the present, making present times seem vile, is a way to get people to surrender themselves, to kind of escape themselves, or like give up their sense of identity in order to become firmer units in the mass movement. And these people who join these mass movements want to do this. They're striving to be able to get rid of themselves because they see themselves as spoiled, and they kind of have contempt for themselves. And I don't know. After last time, I remember I was thinking, like, especially the part about the talk about the present. It was dancing a little bit on the edge of, like, I didn't know what to think. I like looking towards the future, but like after reading it again, putting a little bit more thought into it than before, because I think this is an amazing section, so rich. You could take so much out of this. I guess let me just come up with my version here. What I think maybe is the reason, after reading it this way, I totally agree with it. This is my new reading that I have no problems with, which is the problem is not that these people in these mass movements look to the future. That's not the problem. The problem is that they look to break with the present in order to get to the future. So this future they're looking to is not connected with the present. There's almost like there's no logical connection with it. It's the logic itself is rejected. Practicality is rejected. There's no path to this. It's almost something you have to leap out of the present to do. I mean, that's why they believe these. They want to believe these kind of glorious futures that are total denials of the present. Nothing in the present is accepted, like not even your reason. You have to give up your own reason and just believe to make this future happen. And I think this is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, sitting there and thinking about it, I guess it's kind of an obvious statement, but don't you think, if you were to summarize what is the essence of these people, what are they trying to do? They want to transformation. They want a rebirth. Everything that they are, that's inside of them desires to be transformed in some way into something new, to be reborn into something else.
Yes. And I guess the rebirth is in the future, or at the very least they can forget about themselves until that future comes.
Yeah, I mean, transformation requires that you change in a kind of dramatic or drastic way from what you are now, right? You're frustrated with what you are. I mean, you can see that frustration in a lot of psychological illnesses. There's lots of people that want to transform.
Yeah.
Transformation is not an uncommon thing. I think we all kind of have a desire to transform ourselves into something else, which I guess maybe even transformation isn't entirely the problem. To transform yourself into a stronger, better person is a good thing, but that's why I think he separates these two sections, self-sacrifice and unification, because you can transform. You can lose yourself. You can destroy yourself to go for something higher, and not necessarily join a group.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I don't know. Half the time as I'm reading this, I'm thinking he's thinking of, like, in 56 he said the mass movement gives you a fact-proof screen to put between you and the world. In other words, like, the kind of people he's talking about in general are the people who are absolutely denying the present, right? No matter what you show them, they're not going to believe it. They put all their faith in dogma, right? In the future, in this coming future that they just kind of have to believe is true. Otherwise, they can't get through the next day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is a correct example, but what would you say to someone that said to you that I'm actually a wolf?
Oh boy, is that your fursona?
Yes.
I'm actually a wolf.
Yeah, I mean, like, a kind of this intense desire to be something else. They feel trapped in who they are.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they're not a wolf, and they don't know anything about what it would be like to be a wolf.
This is Nagel, Thomas Nagel.
And Wittgenstein, thank you.
Yeah.
But they simply want, or they say they are wolves,
Yeah.
basically, in a human skin. I mean, the kind of desires like this that are very, I don't know. I mean, like it's tempting to call them identity disorders.
Hmm.
When they get to that level. No, maybe think of kind of psychological identity disorders.
Oh yeah, I like that. That's an interesting route to take it. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, but I do want to preserve. We must definitely preserve like actual transitions, logical, thought out transitions. It just I don't know. This time, a lot of Kaufman came back to me. I think a lot of what Kaufman's talking about is here, isn't it? Like the he talks about how, in the end he talks about how people love some of these the frustrated people. They love to vilify the present. They almost get off on it, like, oh, these times are terrible, and they're kind of like, he says they're taking a secret pleasure in it because this is their revenge. This is the revenge on everyone because they hate the way life is now. They're gonna drag everyone down. So even you people you think you're successful, guess what? Your lives are all meaningless too. It's not just me, right? And I think this part of this revenge is kind of taking revenge on everything now, right? Even like what we think is possible now. Maybe we should build a city underwater and call it Rapture. I don't know, but we gotta take revenge on the now by denying even the logic and everything there, and just kind of hoping for a rebirth sometime later.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like. I remember that book, Apocalypse Culture. It made me think of that book too. And Hoffer also mentioned, I can't remember where, he said chaos too is a desire for kind of equality, right? I mean, to throw everything up, to throw the chessboard up again, and it may be in a crazy way. Some of these post-apocalyptic movies and shows, like the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean, don't they speak to a really deep frustration with a bunch of people who feel like they weren't born for the society, and a lot of the stuff in, for example, The Walking Dead is like Daryl and other people, like they didn't fit in modern society, but when all society is ruined, they found that they can be great leaders and stuff too.
Yeah,
I think that's a kind of maybe childish or very innate desire into these apocalypse fantasies, is that I just want to smash it all to bits and be something. I want to be part of something big, somebody great again.
Yeah. The Amazing Atheist talked about this on one of his videos too, didn't he? They found a guy on Reddit who said he was voting for Sarah Palin because he wanted the world to crumble, right? Because he didn't like the way the world was going, and he wanted to live a meaningful adventure life in this post-apocalyptic world or whatever. I like the Amazing Atheist reply though. He's like, well, you could do that right now. So what's stopping you? Go in the woods. Yeah, why not? Why not go in the woods? But it's kind of part of it. Maybe the point is it's kind of a revenge on the world, isn't it? Like this guy wants revenge on the world. He wants everyone, all these people he sees as successful, taken down, and that's how he's finally going to be relieved of this frustration in his life that he's actually a loser.
Yeah,
he sees himself as a loser. He has self-contempt, right?
I mean, I hate to bring up the contemptible Eric Rogers or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I hate to bring up the contemptible Elliot Rogers. Yeah, Elliot. Maybe it's fitting that I got his name wrong because he doesn't deserve to have his name right. He also, in the end, he just wanted to kill anyone that had sex.
Yeah.
In the end, he just wanted to eliminate sex itself.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if I can't have it, nobody can.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be kind of voluntary, I don't know, monks or something. Because if I can't have it, nobody can.
That's a sucky goal.
Yeah, it is. Wow, I mean, like...
But he could have been a Jedi. He could have been a Jedi.
Yeah, he could have been a Jedi.
Or he could have been a senator. I'm a senator.
Just think of him next to Anakin. You'd be like, Anakin, you just don't get it, man, right?
I don't know why. Don't you think him and Anakin are kind of a good match, though? I'm seeing similarities right now that I'm thinking about this. Like, they kind of have the same facial expressions going on.
Yeah.
that guy like met a hot girl, he'd give her these like lusty stares, like Anakin was giving to Padme when she was passing out.
Don't look at me like that. It makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, I the sad thing is I could see them getting along, but when you know when he starts getting all the hot women, well then
Yeah,
there's gonna be trouble.
yeah, that's not gonna be good. Like he's gonna be the one. Elliot's gonna be the one that betrays the Jedi.
Yes, he's gonna kill all the younglings.
Yeah.
You two will never have sex before I can, right?
Yes.
It's just amazing that we put him in the category of the misfits before,
Yeah.
but I'm almost tempted to put him in the category of the inordinately selfish. Right? He is so selfish that when he can't have it, he'll just erase it for everybody.
Yeah.
That he can't stand the fact that someone's having a pleasure that he wants. Right? That's just too much for him. Which is an amazing selfishness. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but of course that kind of personality had nothing to do with his not ever finding a girlfriend. No, not at all. That never, I like how that never occurred to him. Well, oh well. That's what happens when you're that into crazy town.
I believe that is the doctrine that shielded him from reality.
Yeah.
He desperately searched out for a doctrine that said
why he was okay.
Why he was okay, right? Well, I'm the gentleman, right? Look at this website, look at these groups. I'm the gentleman, right? I don't have to burst my bubble. I don't have to change because change is the scariest thing in the world, right? Me change? No, my God. The world's got to change, and I'm going to do that with a gun, I guess.
If I changed, that would mean there was something wrong with me. What?
Yeah.
Impossible.
Which, he desperately needed to hear, but he was never going to hear it. Right? He was ready to look out for this bubble to live in.
Also, on the present thing, he just slightly mentioned that this kind of comes. There's a lot of stuff in this reading. It all fits together so well. It's just a lot of stuff from different angles on the same thing. But I like how he mentioned in his section of the present. He mentioned absolute certainty and how kind of disconnecting yourself from the present, kind of associating yourself with the future, like a future so strange, so disconnected from the present, you can't even understand it. You can thereby gain a kind of absolute certainty. And this fits in with his later section on action too, right? I mean, these people are seeking to act in the world, and they can't, so they need this. I always imagine it kind of like a car, right? And like their car is like these frustrated people. Their car is like totally out of gas; it can't move. So like they need the most powerful engine in the universe, right? They need the absolute certainty engine. It's almost like something out of the Hitchhiker's Guide. Or I was actually imagining Back to the Future. You got to get it up to 88 miles per hour to launch that absolute certainty car and do some action in the world. I mean, it's interesting, just like how, and if you flip it, right? I mean, these people are so insecure. They're so unsure of themselves. They can't act without absolute certainty. Otherwise, they're just lost. And this is what cutting yourself off from the present. I mean, again, maybe to a certain extent, abandoning your reason, trusting it in someone else, can do for you. It can give you this kind of absolute guide to action, so you never have to worry again.
Yeah, I hate to keep on bringing that back to Elliot Rogers here. I hate to do that, but when he mentioned college is the time when I'm supposed to be having the pleasures, right? Oh, yeah. the pleasure.
Pleasures.
Yeah. As if there's going to be any time in your life that you're totally free from second thoughts and responsibility. And I don't know, it kind of reminded me of almost this kind of childlike vision of the world that, this kind of fantasy of your childhood that, everything was just good and there was no second thoughts about it. And you just all you had to do was listen to mom and dad, and then you went home and you had your cake and you played video games, and that was it. But I guess becoming an adult didn't work out for him, and he thought that there would just be this kind of paradise time waiting for him where you just got this innocent, pure pleasure.
Yeah.
Unconnected with any kind of consequences and thought. And he thinks that this is waiting somewhere for him. And I don't know, I really think that these believers want this state They want to be in this state of mind. I mean, I guess to put it like Eric Hoffer would say it, I guess he'd say like youth is frustrated and wishes for a transformation to a quick adulthood, right? And a desire to become an adult is a desire for freedom, right? Freedom in the sense that he likes. But adulthood is filled with just as many frustrations, and a desire to become like a child is a desire to return to the comfortable, responsibility-free days. And I guess mass movements want their followers to be as children, as Jesus Christ once told his followers to be.
Yes, basically.
I mean, don't you think that mass movements kind of want to keep their followers in an infantile state?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Shielded by doctrine and responsibility. And yeah, when you're a kid, you basically don't think and you don't care what you do because someone's going to clean that up for you.
Yeah. Yes, I kind of like, yeah, I mean, he mentioned this in other sections about like how they shield people off because their imitative capacities are raised. But also, I like these people, I mean, these people believe in order to be saved. I mean, like, you have to use this weird Christian terminology here, but like, they're not believing because it's true. They're believing to be saved, right? They don't, at some point, they're not even considering whether the dogma is true or not. They're not giving it a once-over with their, reasoning capacities. It's, I need to believe this, or I'm lost, right? And then that's the end, right? Just like, what they say, believe and ye shall be saved. Well, maybe they will be, but maybe it's not true.
It just really feels like they are really uncomfortable. These people that are attracted to these doctors are really uncomfortable with a world that's constantly mixed with anxiety. Just anxiety and second guesses and second thoughts about what you did. And yeah, when you're a kid, you didn't have those things, right? Which is that golden time, right? You didn't have anxiety about what you were, who you were. That's just never going to come back.
Yeah.
And the desire to want that to come back, I don't know. It seems like an illness or a retreat.
Yeah, I would say. It seems like, yeah, I mean, it's just an escape. You want to escape from, I don't know, the consequences of actually living. I mean, maybe you could. It is maybe just a return to a kind of childhood where decisions are made for you and people clean up your messes. And I don't know. Maybe hopefully you'll eventually come around to the viewpoint that it's a good thing. You're actually worrying about the consequences of your actions. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess, wow. I don't want to talk about this too much because at the end we have to talk about kind of his summary of what mass movements are.
Yeah.
But I think the theme of, and it's kind of obvious, the theme of transformation is very large here. And I think it's a deep psychological motivation for a lot of people. And a lot of psychologically ill people is a kind of transformation. I mean, think of where people that are frustrated and angry tend to flock to. Places where they can transform, like the internet.
Yeah.
Because the internet offers you basically unlimited chances for anonymous rebirth. You can destroy yourself and recreate yourself 1,000 times on the internet. You can always be something new and something different, right? I could see the incredible attraction of a place like that for people that are very angry and upset with their lives.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of different ways you can look at that, but I think that it has that kind of attraction too. Although I am not going to be as down on anonymity as maybe some people are. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing, but it will attract these kinds of people as well.
Yeah, it kind of fits in with what you were mentioning about make-believe too last week.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, let's go to the next point. Actually, the next thing I kind of want to talk about is hatred.
Yeah, you want to go right to hatred?
I just picked out a couple really good sections, and one of them was this vilification of the present. The next one was hatred.
Okay. Yeah, let's go to that one. I guess this is going to start a new section, though.
Yeah.
So up until now is him talking about factors promoting self-sacrifice, and the next part is going to be unifying agents.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe just briefly talk about that because he has split these up for a reason.
Yeah.
Obviously. And I think the reason is that you can sacrifice yourself, you can lose yourself, and still not necessarily become part of a group. For example, you could become a criminal. Your anxiety and anger can explode into crime or pathological, any kind of pathology or something like that. I mean, or you could become like some kind of Superman or something. Who knows? These are all kind of jumping up from yourself as you are now. But I think what the glue to he calls this the slime that puts these people together is going to be what he's going to talk about next, which is, what does he say? Hatred, imitation, leaders, action, suspicion. Right. These are this is the slime that makes a group stick together.
Yes.
He describes it so wonderfully. He constantly uses that word slime, kind of like Jean-Paul Sartre would describe something.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
But I guess like when you think about it, I mean like, so in other words, after they're done getting rid of yourself, I mean, where does that leave you? You kind of left transformed into this kind of borderless, soft, open, basically blob.
Mm.
And what the mass movement is going to do is the unifying agents are going to stick you in to a big ball, like a Tetris block.
Yeah.
And they're going to cram you and smash you in there any way possible, basically cutting off and trimming whatever is not necessary and slamming you into this group here.
He also suggests, like, I mean, a lot of these people are straight up searching for this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he says that they become like highly reactive chemicals, and they seek to bond because of this kind of frustration in their lives. So they're running to these places to be unified, so they can feel better about themselves, or escape themselves, I should say.
Yeah.
So this hatred, I want to borrow one point from part 2 and bring it over to part 3, which is I think it's part 2. He says section 60, so it's still part 2, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
He kind of starts. He says in section 60 that self-hatred, self-contempt, kind of produces in people a kind of, well, stupidity, or maybe I should say a kind of gullibility.
Yeah.
Kind of self-contempt makes you want to be lied to. Probably specifically about the very thing that's causing you problems. You want to be lied to about this. And I think this is gonna.
So like just to make a terrible example, but the last that killer wanting to be.
Yes.
To believe that he is what do you call him? The supreme gentleman. Or
yes.
Whatever. Just you become more susceptible to the lies.
Yes.
That will prop up your fantasy.
Usually that's not an easy one to believe. I am the ultimate gentleman. Yeah. That's not one you're willing to believe usually, but when you're as frustrated as him, you kind of want to believe it. And I think it's interesting. I mean, like all these people, they kind of in a sad way, I think they kind of going back to Kaufman, they throw away the one thing I think that could get them out of this. That would be more thinking and more rationality, but that's located as the enemy, right? So that's got to go. So you you throw that out because you want to believe something. This thing that you're going to believe is going to have to explain away you, and so this self-hatred kind of produces in you a gullibility, and then you go over to this normal hatred, which he discusses in the first part of section 3, and he locates normal hatred, or at the base of most normal hatred, passionate hatred, maybe I should say. At the base of passionate hatred is self-contempt, also, right? And I like how he provocatively says too. It's not even unjustified hatreds only. Like, for some reason you just got it out for the gays, even though you never met one, right? But those gays are killing our nation, right? Never even bother to check if that's happening, but I just know in my bones. So you got these people who are obviously frustrated, or they're just pulling stuff out of the air to explain their own frustration away. They want to believe that this is happening. They would much rather believe that the gays are destroying the nation than the fact that their life is not going well and might be partially their fault. He also locates it in even reasonable grievances. He says, part of the anger, part of the hatred born of reasonable grievances is self-contempt. And I really like that section. I mean, I kind of have to agree. I think that's true. When something happens to you, I mean, the victim has a propensity to overstate his victimhood, and I think this is why. I mean, you're shown your own impotence, and you don't like it, and it's terrible. It feels really bad to be shown how powerless you are in the world, and it hurts. And then you kind of do this, well, Nietzschean resentment move, right, where you rationalize this hatred as reasonable because they're so terrible. They're the most terrible people in the universe. So this level of hatred is totally due them. And I mean, it's best to take a sillier example, I think. I mean, like, I don't know, if I borrowed some guy's iPhone and I dropped it and I broke his screen and he starts screaming at me, I mean, if I pay him, he can get it fixed in like a week, right? But I mean, that's not the thing, right? I mean, it's the thing. The thing is that he's kind of lost control of his iPhone or iPad, right? He's angry about the loss of control over his own life, even though it's reasonable to be angry at me for being so clumsy. I really liked this section about how people take these kind of personal grievances and then rationalize them as justifiable in order to kind of take revenge on the world, and not, I guess, to escape the fact that they aren't as powerful as they think. And I just I want to give a more dangerous example.
Okay.
So this is actually real.
Are you gonna use me, because that's where it gets scary? Okay.
No. So my job, I teach.
Yeah.
And some of the students, there's a whole bunch of teachers with me, and I have office hours too, and so do the other teachers, and sometimes students come into office hours with papers that are obviously computer aided. These students could not produce this material on their own. They've either done some internet magic or borrowed a paper from someone else, but they didn't produce it, obviously. And I think, so what happens is, and we get lots of people coming into office hours, lots of them. I mean, sometimes it's just nonstop. It's very tiring. It kind of crushes you spiritually. You're dead by the end of that office hour. What happens to a lot of teachers is they get really, really angry at these students. We kind of actually, there are mini outbursts at the students, and even when the students are gone, the anger at them is nonstop. There's nonstop complaining, nonstop anger at them, and I don't know. Okay, here's my Hoffer-laden analysis of this. So I think the interesting thing is, like, I think these guys, these teachers, these other teachers, the reason they get mad is because they are kind of on an ego trip, not because the students are trying to cheat their way through their class. it's I don't know, to put it very straight, if they really think that their subject matter is useful, they wouldn't be angry with the students. They would feel sorry for them, but they don't. They're extremely angry with them because they think the students are trying to pull one over on them or something.
They see it as a personal attack on them. I know.
Yes.
I know. Don't ask me why I know that.
Yeah. I mean, they see it as a personal attack on them. They think the students are trying to pull one over on them. They think the students are trying to cheat through life. But it's not about the material. It's not. And they kind of, but here they are all day telling themselves, you know, I'm angry because these kids have got to learn this. They've got to learn this, and I'm trying to teach them, and what do? They don't live up to my expectations. No, I'm not buying that for 1 minute. I think it's sad that these students don't want to learn. And it's sometimes it can be annoying having to look at these papers and say, like, you got to go home, man, and you got to do this yourself. But this is their loss. This is their loss in education. If they want to go through life without this education, if they never want to learn this stuff, that's going to be your life you are screwing up. And this is why, and to a certain extent, it doesn't get to me. And this is why all this stuff, all this ranting and raving about how all these students are all terrible, terrible people, and how they're just these guys think they're so worried about these students learning this material. It seems all so fake to me. I don't know. That's my real example. It's a rationalization of this self-frustration. They have frustrated lives, and they're telling themselves that the reason they're frustrated is for a real reason, and it's not.
Well, that's never happened to me.
Oh wow. Well, now I'm not gonna exclude myself from this. Like, I think this will happen to anybody in a position of teaching. I think. But that was kind of, I don't know, that was a lot on my mind as I was reading this section, how a lot of this anger comes from a self-hatred, and it's a kind of resentment. It's an externalization of the enemy. It's an externalization of your frustration or an external rationalization and externalization of your frustration as a kind of, you are being put upon by this terrible, terrible outward force. That's why you're still okay.
Yeah, because I don't know, that you just want to believe that what you're doing is important.
Yeah.
Then when someone doesn't do it, yeah, you start to think crazy things, right? But if you really actually in your core believed, like, well, this is really necessary for you to get a decent education, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I totally agree with you. Although that doesn't stop me from becoming a little angered at times. But I know, like, I went through those exact feelings, and then I kind of came to the conclusion you did. But wow, it took me a while to get through that, because you have to realize it's not about you, right? It's kind of, you're there to facilitate other people learning something else, right?
Exactly.
But if you think it's about you, you're just incredibly wrong.
Yeah.
And I think these people, a lot of them do think it's about them.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not supposed to be. They make it about them.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's just part of the experience of being a teacher. It's part of one of the hard things I think about being a teacher is, I mean, in an Epictetus way, you kind of gotta let it go, I guess, and just these kids. I don't know. I really think they will regret not doing this work. I know they will. That's why I think it's actually beneficial. Every one of them who doesn't do this is gonna, even a little slightly, they're gonna regret it, because they had an opportunity to do something interesting with their lives. They had an opportunity for more chances in life, and they just threw it away. Maybe now it seems fun, but it's not gonna seem so fun when you're in your mid-30s. and your job is very so-so, and it could have been better, but you figured it would be cooler to copy your paper from Wikipedia.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But I think that's why I thought a lot of this stuff was maybe very and almost an analysis of the effects of resentment on people, and how it produces, it's an emotion that produces like a self-deception. It's an emotion that it makes you want to not have to change, right? It makes you not want to improve. It wants to keep you as you are. It wants to keep you impotent and lie to you and tell you sweet little truths. And well, I hope someday we can bring this back to our Nietzsche readings too.
Yeah, I mean, this you could go so many different places with this. The same analysis could be brought up with a more dangerous topic like racism, right? I mean, the vicious hatred of, I guess, what, black people ruining America, when, you know, like, it's kind of funny, the people that have this vicious hatred for black people that have never met them, or if they have, it's just been in passing on the streets, right? They've never actually done anything to them, right? I mean, like, I don't know, for some reason I always think of Malcolm X, because he had his bitter streak, his streak of poison inside of him. But I mean, when they said, like, you know, go fight in Vietnam, he said, well, the Vietnamese never did anything to me, right? And, you know, it's kind of like, it's amazing how many of these people that show these deep-seated, not to say that statement is right, that means that white people did something to him either, not to say that, but I'm saying, like, you know, it's amazing how people can have this deep-seated hatred of black people or other kind of foreign elements to them without actually having anything done to them by them.
No.
Right? It's like how he says, like, oftentimes it's you're abused and then you throw that abuse on someone else.
Yes.
As a cover for, because if you were to strike back on who was actually abusing you, you might be shown up for how powerless you really are, which might be one reason why it kind of gets directed in a different place. Others, propaganda too. I mean, like, when you start thinking about, like, the Republicans, I mean, why is it that the lower classes associate themselves with the Republicans? I mean, like, is it, you know, they always say, well, the people believe one day that they too will be rich. That's why they're going to team up with the Republicans. So for the poor, the villain isn't corporations, or their lack of effort, right? It's liberals and immigrants. But I mean, the question is, why did they choose one side over the other? Why didn't they choose corporations as the villain as opposed to immigrants or Obama? I guess it's got to be because, you know, it's their really pathetic reattempt at getting pride back, right? It's another trick of resentment, like, well, Republicans are America, you know, corporations are America, and I'm an American, so that means I'm great, right? So any desperate attempt to save the little bit of pride they have, they will take above actually striking back at the person who's actually abusing them, or actually having to change their life in some way, or rethink the community that they're part of instead of being kind of more ostracized from their own community, right? They would much rather come up with a lie. It's kind of like this section on dogma kind of, I don't know, it hovers around the hatred part, right? I mean, the lie that surrounds a lot of this hatred is just a lie you tell yourself to kind of vent the anger and frustration you're feeling, generally on the wrong people.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of reminded me of, like, yatsutari in Japanese, right? I don't know. You go home and, I mean, what did they say? It was just taking things out on the furniture, right? You hit your table, you hit your chair, because things aren't going well, and it just feels good to hit your table and chair.
Yeah, I mean, he has so many great things to say about hatred. I mean, like, when he says things like this, that people that hate focus all their hatred, or mass movements focus all their hatred on a single foe or a devil, and the ideal devil is omnipotent and omnipresent.
Yes. Yes.
So I mean, like, everywhere. It's everywhere. Like, so like, well, it's the gay agenda, I guess, because the gay agenda controls everything, right?
Yeah.
The gay agenda is behind moral destruction, corporations, environmentalism, or whatever they want to say. Gay agenda, or the Illuminati, or the Jews, or some kind of omnipresent something, one entity that's taking them out, frustrating them.
I mean, it goes back to, we talked about this before, but like even when you get just a small group of people together, it's like 10 or so, it seems like always one of them turns out to be the demon in the group, right? And then like when he's not there, everyone talks about how terrible he is.
Yeah.
And as soon as that guy's somehow forced out of the group, magically another demon appears. How does that happen? I don't know. But it just seems to happen again and again and again and again. Right? There's always this one demon in the group you can try and cohere. You kind of your topic of discussion is on him, and it helps you come together around discussing him. But oh wow, it seems everywhere I go, every place of work I've been at in Japan, in America, it's always this demon guy in the group who's making everyone have problems.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of another section too, and I can't find the section now. I'm just looking for it. But when Hoffer says, like, look, the people in mass movements don't love each other.
Yes.
They don't have brotherly love for each other. They love the group itself in a crazy kind of way, right? I mean, and in the same way, generally, it just shows how weak the groups are when the first thing that happens is you try to find who the stupidest guy you hate the most is, and then you start commenting about it. I mean, you basically have nothing to talk about. But, I mean, it kind of shows you that, if that's all you've got, I mean, there was really nothing holding you together in the first place. You didn't really love each other in the first place, right? Well, generally that happens a lot in work and stuff too. I mean, you're just kind of thrown together. And I've seen that happen so many times that it's quite disturbing, actually, how quickly that happens. And then people start getting paranoid, like, am I it this time?
Exactly right. You never know. You could be it the next time too. That's the thing. You never know who's going to be it the next time. Just whenever there's a demon gap, someone's got to be the candidate for the next one.
I mean, it's weird in Japan too. I mean, it's like a floating, almost omnipresent ghost or something that kind of goes around and haunts, and then it leaves the person and will go to someone else, right? And who's the hated now will kind of float around between several people. Yeah,
sounds like a Japanese horror movie.
It does. It does sound like a Japanese horror movie.
Yeah, well, this section on hatred, like all of these sections are just so rich. There's so much more I want to sit and think about and come back to these sections again and again and again. I mean, this book is the definition of a rich book. So I would like to talk more about all of these, and I would like to have more time to talk about them, but
I guess I just want to say one last thing
about hatred. Okay.
Like, I mean, what hatred does is it kind of ends up dehumanizing, and he'll talk about this later, but dehumanizing the person you're hating on, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you kind of lose whatever self-restraint you had, and you, almost by becoming dehumanized, by becoming less than you were, or not a full-fledged self, you go through the process of making someone else dehumanized, right? And this kind of vicious cycle begins where dehumanization breeds more dehumanization. That's why it says the torture chamber is a corporate institution. Right? That's the last line in this one on hatred. I mean, it does remind you of the army, And the pictures from Abu Ghraib, is whatever George Bush said. Um, I mean, the army teaches you that you're not an individual, that there is no you there per se. You're just a soldier and you're following orders and you have no say in anything, no responsibility. And, how easily that lets emotions and anger that would otherwise be contained by your own good judgment and decency, how that lets it just fly free. It allows it to escape. It's almost as if, the tripartite soul.
Yes.
Someone shot and blew up the top of the tripartite soul, and like in Ghostbusters, everything bad is just like flying up from it, like Zool and stuff, right? That's what it reminded me of.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking about that for this one too. I mean, because kind of what was going on and in the Republic too was kind of Plato was trying to make an ethic based on self too, right? And here all these guys running around not thinking about self. Plato wanted to redirect the whole thing on that, like what kind of person you are.
Yeah, it's almost scary. I don't know why I keep on thinking of Plato as we do this. Maybe it's because we read him again recently, but it does feel like, I don't know, mass movements do their best to shave away that part of reason, that one part that can unify and make you a decent person, and they just obliterate it.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary. I mean, like reading this book, it's the constant theme is that it's almost completely irrational. I mean, there's really almost very little. But I guess what I mean by irrationality is a search for truth, a harsh, strong looking for what's real and what's really going on, and you're kind of awash in other things. The search for truth has been lost.
Yeah. Basically. So, like, what do you think about this? Like, as I was reading this, you're right. These mass movements, they organize themselves to get rid of this. But I mean, a lot of the root of this is self-contempt makes you throw away your reasoning, doesn't it? This is the beginning of the downfall, right? You throw your reasoning away to relieve yourself of this self-contempt, right? This is the first thing you're willing to sacrifice, is this search for truth and reasoning, because this all connected to you, right? And how could you be right? You're terrible. You suck.
Isn't it interesting, too, that Plato spends so much time saying you have to work like gymnastics to build up your reasoning and train at it and think about it? And I should say, in the modern era, it kind of seems like people are not encouraged to build up their reason, to read books, to think rationally. It's kind of instant response, YouTube comments. And then when, of course you're going to get frustrated with that if you go wrong a couple of times. And you'd be like, oh, screw it. I can't do anything right? I mean, well, yeah, if you don't train yourself, if you don't get the proper training and to be able to think and reason appropriately, yeah, you're going to be more prone to throwing that away.
Yeah. Yes.
It's scary to me.
You have no idea how frustrated I am when I go to the batting cage. Yeah. Not a lot of previous baseball training in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first $20 worth of 100 yen coins goes to swing and miss, right?
Yeah, yeah. But then when you get to love it, when you get to feel good, right? When you feel yourself in there, you kind of gain yourself back again, right? I know. I've been there. Usually, when you're not good at it, you like to do it alone.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah, I go to the batting cage alone. I go to karaoke alone. Hey. Well, the karaoke is fun, even alone. You don't even have to be bad at it. Going to karaoke is awesome.
Yeah.
So even this, like, I'm jumping around a little bit. Even this section on imitation is basically this, though. I mean, he does a big section on imitation, which is really interesting, and it made me think a lot about Japan. But just in general, I mean, I think if you were to look at the core of this, so what is the problem with this imitation? That, like, self-contempt leads you to throw yourself, and then it leads you to imitate others. You mistrust your own judgment, so you think the group must be right, or at least they're an example for you. And he also mentions, like, when you're in a hurry or you
too
lack
busy.
ability. Yeah, which Japan. I mean, but the problem, I mean, the core problem here is this, going back to this Kaufman-esque thing where it's this abandoning of reasoning. That's it. I mean, imitation's fine, I think, for a beginner. I mean, this is what you need to do in language learning, and this is what students need to do. I mean, isn't rule following a kind of imitation?
Yeah.
I mean, this is what beginners need. As long as you're not throwing away your reasoning in the process, as long as you're not throwing yourself into the group just to lose yourself.
Right, you're not using it as a crutch.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're using the language as a tool to make yourself, to find yourself, to make a new style. Right? Of course, you need to imitate. Everyone needs to imitate in the beginning.
Yes.
So imitation is not bad necessarily.
Also going back to Nietzsche again, too, from Human to Human. Didn't we have this discussion about rule following before, too?
Yes, yes,
it's all looping back on itself. Oh, wow. Do you have any sections you wanted to talk about? I have kind of one more mini section, and
then. I just want to see where you're going to go with it. I mean, like, I guess thought it was interesting. This is going to go back to hatred again too. That like he says the ultimate devil is foreign, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is it.
I mean, it fits well within his theory too about locating frustration outside, right?
It begs repeating. I love this. Finally, it seems the ideal devil is a foreigner. To qualify as a devil, a domestic enemy must be given a foreign ancestry. I mean, you see this happening just all the time, everywhere. And this is what un-American means too. Foreign, outside, right? I mean, it's just really
European.
Yeah, European or Kenya. He's from Kenya. He can't be one of us. How could one of us be so different? Oof, yuck. Right? It's this constant putting of everything out in the outside. I mean, like, it's kind of funny. I mean, when you think about the word foreign devils, is almost a tautology.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
You might as well just say devil. Because it's just already going to be. I mean, sometimes in some movies you learn, oh my God, you're the devil, which is a good horror movie, right? The devil was you. But generally, when you say devil, it's basically foreign devil.
Yeah.
You're all foreign devils. But when you think about it, I mean, like, there's almost a kind of like Faustian wisdom here. Like, there's almost like I can just imagine Mephistopheles. If someone were to write a play and he would pop up here, he'd be like, well, then you better be thanking me for making your groups as great as they are. Right? I mean, like, you might go shake Obama's hand for making it possible for you guys to get together because you need me so bad. What would you do without me, right? I mean, it sounds like something Goethe would have Mephistopheles say, right? He'd pop up and be like, I'm the one that destroys but also creates, and, it's just kind of a lovely thing. I don't know. I thought that was really kind of... It's interesting how indebted they are to the devil.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, like, didn't this, like, ring with Bruce Fleming, too? Like,
yes, the outside.
So this is from the outside, like, in the conservative viewpoint, tension is located structurally outside, and the liberal viewpoint, tension is located structurally inside.
Whenever there is tension, it's put on the outside, right? If you're in the in-group has tension, you're automatically part of the out-group.
Out-group, right. You were never one of us to begin with, etc., 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 which he claims is the kind of conservative viewpoint. Wow, there's just so much stuff. I mean, Fleming fits right in with this, too. All right, what was it? Oh, no, sorry, I had 2 points on it. Where's it? Where's this section? But no, maybe that's okay. The section on action is unifying agent was really cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Other than, I just remember, like, as I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, and it just came up as I was reading it too. Like, even before he said it, I was remembering Catch-22. And Yossarian, they always had him march, always marching, right? And it was really great how he mentioned, like, these generals use marching to crush and destroy the individuality, to make them do action, so they lose themselves in their action. And again, this goes back to Bruce Fleming, and I even saw a little bit of Jean-Paul Sartre in here, in this idea of like, I kind of wish Hoffer had talked more about action. It's interesting, but I wanted more. I mean, I guess I filled in the gaps with Jean-Paul Sartre almost, because Sartre talks about how when you're walking on, what was the example? I can't remember. You're walking on the street and you see some woman, she's going to get hit by a car or something. You don't see me seeing her. You just see woman in danger needing help, right? You're gone. You're eliminated from this action. All you see is the woman needing help and the action that needs to be done. The self is eliminated, and that's why these mass movements keep you moving and acting and never having time to think about yourself.
The transcendence of the ego, yeah.
Yes. First, maybe Hoffer and Sartre could have got together and worked on the transcendence of the ego a little bit. But I have to admit, like, when things are troubling me, nothing helps sometimes more than cleaning.
Yeah.
I just sit and I clean and I clean and I clean. It feels meaningful. I don't have to think about my problems. I just have to think about what's in front of me. It's wonderful. Cleaning is a wonderful way to relieve stress because you're gone at that moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, and it's such. I don't know. For me, it's of all of these, it's the healthiest thing I feel like in all of this. Like, I mean, who doesn't feel, even taking part in Reddit, how that can be a kind of action that makes you part of a community when you're like raising money for something, or even just people that donate the things together, or you're working together on a project. I mean, it can be easily broken too, but action together really does so easily create a sense of bonding between people, and to me, it's healthier at the very least. And Hoffer even kind of admits as much when he says, "Well, too much successful action can actually make a self emerge, right? A real person that has pride in themselves."
Yeah.
So, like, of all of these, like, act, right? Act. But then he says things like, "Well, in a world that, for sake of a place that was hit by a long-term depression, Japan, that it's where it's difficult to act because of regulations, Japan, and like you're going to have a lot of troubles because I mean, like I think not just the Japanese, but like human beings, like Mark said, I think we're just creative people and we want to make things, and a lot of people don't want to sit around and read books and talk about them. They want to act. And when they can't do that, right? This just frustration builds in so many people.
That's totally destroyed by the totally huge amount of philosophy discussion videos on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh wait, it's only really us and a couple other people.
Yeah, right. I mean, when Eric Hoffer is only getting like 5,000 views, I mean, what chance do we have?
The man, right? The man himself.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, you can get it from his mouth, or you could just watch. I don't know, cats or something, which I do like watching cats.
It's a really great video, this cat on a Roomba. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful. I love it. It starts swiping its paw at the dog. It's all powerful because it's on the Roomba.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good video.
It is a good video.
Yeah.
I do enjoy that. That's kind of funny. The big videos now, the biggest videos now are like Rebecca Black.
Yeah.
In other words, videos we can all get together and hate on.
Yeah.
Chocolate Rain. Anybody? I mean, that's just a big hate fest, which makes everyone feel good about themselves. Feel all together.
That's right. It's like she's our meteor from outer space, or our alien invasion, right?
What a lame devil we've got.
Yeah, we got a really terrible alien invasion. It's Rebecca Black. Yeah.
I mean, wow.
And Rebecca Black actually turned out to be a kind of a good person too. She donated like half of her money to the Japan Relief Fund. Oh well.
Never underestimate the underwelling of hate. Or ectoplasm under the internet, right?
Yes.
It's mood slime under the internet.
It's building up. I guess I only have then one more, and then we can finish up. I guess like just the general point.
Yeah.
Unless you have something, which is the section on propaganda.
Ah, yeah.
This is a really small side point. I thought it was really interesting. He made some good points about propaganda. and I mean, he said like propaganda. What he said, propaganda penetrates only into minds already open, and rather than instill opinion, it articulates and justifies opinions already present in the minds of its recipients. It can't force unwilling minds. It can't inculcate something wholly new. It can't stop people. Can't keep people who've stopped believing. Propaganda kind of works on only like people who have had these thoughts already. It's almost like what Wittgenstein said over the Tractatus. Anyway,
wow.
Not that the Tractatus is propaganda. I'm just saying. But and then he also said about how he talked about how propaganda serves to justify ourselves. Maybe when we feel guilty, we kind of use it to prop up our own opinions because we're not quite sure that we've done the right thing. So we kind of fall back on propaganda to kind of pump ourselves up a little bit. But I mean, we've kind of had these opinions already. We're just trying to bolster ourselves. So all this section, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to kind of compare it to Anita Sarkeesian.
Oh wow!
But in a way, no, I'm not. There's no direct comparison, but in a way, doesn't she see video games as a kind of propaganda? In a way, she sees video games as a type of propaganda.
Wow, you're going this direction. Interesting. Okay.
And like that she thinks it affects our actions and it supports harmful attitudes towards women. I mean, but isn't this the point also Tool Time made about like conservative Christian creationists, right? How the media doesn't affect them, even though the media could be conceived as like having all these powerful messages. They don't believe in this, and it doesn't change them because they are outside of this viewpoint, and no matter how much media propaganda hits them, they're kind of impervious. Just like feminism has made her impervious to some of these messages she thinks are contained within games. But I mean, what if we take this and they'll just gonna go back to the other side then? Don't you think like maybe I was re-listening to some of the early Anita Sarkeesian replies and like how they talk about Anita makes me want to puke, or I hate her and she's a liar, lesbian.
Again, the hatred that really shouldn't exist.
Exactly.
We were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
One woman on the internet and you want to puke, huh?
Yes. It's it's interesting asking the question like why would that make you want to puke though? I mean, what happened before that? Like
there are like Nazis on the internet too.
Yeah. No. Anita makes me want to puke.
Oh, okay.
Right. It's not the baby gore threads or the pictures of people torturing animals. It's Anita.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I mean, like, doesn't it pose the question though? Like, I mean, is Anita making people feel guilty by her accusations? I mean, this intense reaction is striking a chord, right? I mean, or at least if she's not making them feel guilty, she's making them worry. They don't even like the suggestion. Not even the suggestion. I mean, even the very suggestion kind of makes them want to puke, right? Some of these lower level guys. Oh, and because the internet is filled with stupid people. Let me say this real quick. I'm talking about not the sophisticated replies to Anita. Talking about the people who go on and they say, Anita makes me want to puke and she has to shut up. Goodbye, video finished. And there's plenty of those, internet. Don't deny that.
I just want to say, like, that reminds me of Angry Joe's reply. I mean, he said something that I don't know, kind of agree with. Basically, he's kind of like, well, you know it's kind of true, don't you? We know. I mean, the second that Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball came out, I mean, the problem is we all kind of were like, oh, yeah, there's that. I mean, and when we were alone in our men caves or something, we were all joking about, like, oh, my God, that's just over the top, man. But then when somebody on the outside comes in, oh, my God, how dare you, right? I do think in a certain way, like, the anger comes from maybe a little bit of the sense that, yeah, I was dressing all these girls in like skimpy outfits and stuff, I was doing it too, Yeah. There was something there that made the reaction so harsh. I mean, come on, I the reaction just told me so much. It told me so much more than anything. If you're that angry about some, I don't know, nobody on the internet called Anita Sarkeesian, wow, you really need help.
Yeah. I mean, is the reaction due to guilt? Is the reaction due to a feeling of powerlessness? They're afraid they're not gonna have games anymore, or what? But a lot of this, but I mean, isn't it interesting too? I mean, it fits right in with what Hoffer was saying, though. It's just to calm your own guilt.
Yeah.
You paint her as this terrible, terrible monster, like we were talking about way before, like how like Jordan Norton said, like she's the most powerful feminist in America.
Right. It's kind of funny too. Like, if in your heart of hearts you actually thought she was wrong, just absolutely objectively wrong, which they constantly say. But I don't think they believe it if they're that angry. I mean, like if someone said to you, well, 2 + 2 is 7.
Yeah.
I mean, would you make a video saying, yeah, you make me puke, right? Or like, the size of Mercury or something. Like, that Mercury is about half the size of the sun. I mean, you'd be like, well, that's silly. Why don't you go look at Wikipedia? That's just not true. I mean, why would you get upset about that?
Yeah.
I mean, because we're not talking about the size of Mercury here. So, like, there's always this. I guess they kind of feel like everything is subjective and in the air, and maybe they feel like they're just. As soon as someone takes control of this kind of basically reasonless dialogue, there's just no reason at all, and someone's just going to grab control, and she's going to force her viewpoints on everyone. I don't know what is the fear here, but the fear is disproportionate to what's actually happening in reality.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know where to locate it. Is it just like a fear of being censored, even though she hasn't suggested that? I'm not sure. But I mean, a lot of the stuff mentioned here just kind of reminded me a little bit of the reaction to Anita. I mean, on top of that, I mean, I think Anita also, we talked about this too, like she doesn't use inclusive language.
Yeah.
So here she is like inculcating all this guilt, or trying to anyway, or at least attempting to try to inculcate guilt or inculcate shame or something. And then, I mean, exactly what Hoffer said would happen happens. These people flip it and become self-righteous and declare her a monster. Right.
When she should have been doing exactly what he said that Churchill did, right? Portray these guys as kind of on her side, or fighters for truth and reason, right? She should have been painting them as her allies, even if they weren't.
Yeah.
Right? Giving them something to do and be part of. I mean, whatever she does, somebody's going to be against her. But she could have painted it better, just to make it easier on herself.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to come out all straight, that's fine too, I suppose. I mean, Anita's videos aren't inflammatory by.
No.
They're not inflammatory by any means. It's pretty. She plays it pretty straight, but even that, like, the lack of inclusive language could have been changed, I think.
I just want to say one last thing too about this thing on persuasion and coercion, which always kind of got to me, but I seeing it here in Hoffer kind of crystallized the thought. I mean, he said that like when someone that makes propaganda, basically when the followers hear it, they say he echoes their innermost feelings, which is basically sophistry in Plato.
Yeah.
And he says propaganda by itself succeeds mainly with the frustrated people that they're already there. And what is it he doesn't he say here, like, oh God, where does he say? People can be made to believe only what they already know. But don't you hear this all the time when people hear like Rush Limbaugh? Like he's saying what I've thought in my heart for so long, right? He's saying what I know. We should put this a different way. Remember what kind of like Epictetus said about the philosopher, right? That the philosopher and the philosophy should be a painful thing. What would it be if you came from a philosopher and all you said was, yeah, he totally told me what I already knew? What would that be philosophy anymore, right? You came out of a philosophy book and you're like, yeah, I knew everything there. That was great. I mean, something strange. I mean, it's either an arrogant assumption that you know everything and you have nowhere to go, and all you need is an echo chamber out there, some beacon to throw your thoughts out to the world, right? You don't have to learn anything else. You don't have to be challenged anymore, right? You just have to have somebody that crystallizes your thoughts out there, right? It's kind of weird that like that's what people want, right? I mean, it kind of reminds me of like the end times and the democracy and the tyrant in Plato, right? It's just all about you. It's not about the truth anymore. All it is just this arrogant, self-centered egoism that says, well, what's great is what echoes my thoughts.
Yeah.
When actually, I mean, when you just sit there and think about it for a second, you'd be like, well, wouldn't you want to learn something?
No, it's as long as it's complimenting me. That was at the end of democracy, wasn't it? Like, yeah,
I don't think they think there is anything to learn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think this is you're so right. This is part of like a lot of people. I just love this too. They're kind of like, and actually, John Hobel gets into this a little bit, but I love how people believe these two things. They believe they know everything they need to know, one, but also on a different time, they'll say straight up, this kind of stuff can't be taught. It's impossible to know.
Yeah.
There's nothing there to know. What are you talking about? But they know everything they need to know. Yeah. Right? These are these two. People hold both of these. They really do. And it's really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the idea behind what is all this philosophy stuff. It's useless, right? Well, I already know everything I need to know. And I don't know. I mean, all of this reading Hoffer brings it to such a head for me because in an age, I don't want to sound too pessimistic because like I'm trashing the present, but I mean, in an age of electronic mass communication that doesn't exactly exercise your rational part of your mind. I mean, think about modern propaganda. Modern propaganda in images and movies, even movies, do everything they can to subvert your rational mind, to jump behind it. They play a song. They color their products a different color. They hide things from you. They put beautiful women next to their products. I mean, everything they're doing is constantly trying to subvert and blow the top off of the tripartite soul, right? I mean, everything they're doing is jumping behind it. And in an age of mass media and in kind of minor mass movements everywhere, I mean, it's kind of frightening to see Plato's kind of alarmist vision come true here of a democracy that can't point itself towards truth. I know this is kind of an alarmist vision here, but it seems like it's unconcerned with truth, and if it hits the truth, it's kind of, well, you know, it's a machine gun, right? It's just shooting everywhere, right? I mean, it's going to hit something somewhere, but maybe it's not as bad as Plato says. You know, there are still people thinking and engaging with the truth, but there are alarming elements in society that are totally unconcerned with the truth, and they're doing their best to kind of eliminate that function in you. And perhaps even media itself is making a kind of man who is no longer interested in that kind of reasoning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or you mean something like along the structure of media even, too?
Yeah, I mean, like media itself. The very way media works, television and the internet and YouTube, I mean, that is simply not interested in long, reasoned-out arguments that you have to reflect on. I mean, that book by Neil Postman, Amusing Ourselves to Death, I mean, he starts one chapter and he says, like, some Lincoln-Douglas debates, I can't remember, some Lincoln debates. You know how long the debates that Lincoln had were in the beginning? He used to have 3-hour debates, and people would come and watch them. And so one person have an hour to speak, Lincoln would have an hour to rebut, and people loved this. One time, I guess they lasted so long that they had them all go home, eat dinner, and then come back for another 5 hours of debating. And this was before Lincoln was a presidential candidate.
Wow.
Okay, so you can tell either how the people were starved for, you know, something, right? So some kind of activity. But
they didn't have American Idol on at the time.
Yeah, right. Which is interesting. It made me think another thing too is how important song is going to be in a community, right? Because song is something else, like Schopenhauer said, that jumps past the reason. It jumps straight into the will. It subverts your reasoning process. It brings you into the magic circle. Anyway, it's kind of alarming thoughts I had while reading this. Anyway,
I just want to throw up one point though. I agree with everything you said. Just about I think there is a benefit to articulation of thought. It is beneficial to articulate thoughts that you have. I mean, I think people,
You mean in propaganda per se, or?
not even in propaganda per se, but I just mean like even in, for example, in the doing of philosophy,
Yeah.
or like even like somebody like Plinkett or something like this, like other people are like, I was thinking the same thing, Plinkett, yeah, right. But I mean, like this bringing to the fore of thought, it actually allows for more possibilities, allows you to engage with it more, to analyze it more. So there is a benefit.
Oh,
to
well, you
this.
definitely
Yeah.
there's definitely a benefit to understanding why and what you're doing, right? I mean, it's not definitely. I mean, I'm just saying, like, imagine if you were to read every book and say, well, I thank you for saying what I already knew.
Yeah, right. That way.
Would you want that world? I mean, would you be excited about that? Like,
No.
Rush, he's always saying what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Well,
I suppose
believe for you then, right?
if you just like articulated everything you thought and then like said, well, I'm done now.
Yeah.
I've articulated everything I thought.
I mean, it's great if you can articulate what you thought, but would you want everyone else to be articulating what you're thinking too all the time? Is that what you want?
Yeah. I'm done.
I guess.
I'm finished. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, imagine the people on the end, like they wouldn't have a job anymore. Like, so I don't know. It gets to me sometimes. But that point is totally valid. I totally believe that there is a point to articulate. In fact, actually, that builds up your reasoning and critical skills.
Yeah.
Articulating why you feel as you feel, which is kind of what we're doing right now,
isn't it? Yeah. All right. Yeah. You want to finish this thing up?
Sure. I just want to ask you one last question then, because it's just a big sense picture. I mean, basically, he's kind of saying, well, what is a mass movement? And to me, the picture I got is basically says what a mass movement does is it mangles and destroys people. It makes them incomplete people. It maims them. Maybe Schopenhauer would say it puts plastic
what did he say?
limbs on them or something. Or like Nietzsche said that too, right? I mean, it puts plastic, artificial limbs on you. And the job of a philosopher is to cut these things off. But it also made me think of that Junji Ito story too, that the mountain of Amigahara or whatever, right? I mean, like, when people walk into that hole, that human-shaped hole, right, and then they go in, and soon they're just distorted and ripped out of shape. It kind of made me think that's what Hoffer is saying these movements are doing to you, is that you start as somebody, I guess, or possibly something, and they just rip you apart until you fit in, or you willingly participate too. You keep on going forward. And what's interesting is like you have these feelings inside of you, but then the group just makes it so much more powerful, and you get trapped, and it's almost this cycle of destruction. And I guess when you're frustrated, there's two things that can happen. You can find yourself or totally lose yourself. And when you lose yourself and you become so part of that group, he suggests that that's it. I mean, there's almost no escape. You're just maimed. You're intellectually, spiritually maimed for life, he almost suggests. There's little way to recover from it.
Those are the scary parts. I wasn't sure what to think of that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, he mentions like people who are taken out of these environments and they're kind of given all this success outwardly of this individual success, but they end up just feeling lost, never at home, kind of yearning to just go back to be part of the group. They're just unable to be individual anymore. The part of them that would help them make them individual has just been so deformed.
Yeah, I mean that's the image I got of this kind of grinding gears that mangle the soul until it's kind of just done with it.
Yeah.
And that even this group entity, which is not bound by brotherly love, will even eat itself if it has to, and dehumanize parts of itself if it has to maintain itself, right? It almost becomes a living blob like the blob, like a blob-like monster that will even attack itself and take parts of itself out just to stay alive, right? You can almost become like, I don't know, like the Matrix in a certain way, kind of energy for another kind of machine. You can read a lot of interesting things into this. It's a very kind of frightening picture, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's, oh, wow. I don't want to end on such a strange note, but, like, in some ways it kind of reminded me of the way people conceive of love.
Oh wow.
Um,
Explain. I want to hear this.
you know, like the old story Aristophanes brought up in the Symposium, where he said people are they used to be two-headed, and then the gods struck them down for their arrogance, and they split them in two, and you're ever, forever searching for your missing half, and then when you find them, you found true love. You're a complete individual.
Yeah.
And I mean, this would be like you find the person you think completes you, and you cannot be without them anymore. Maybe this would be a very needy lover. It doesn't fit the picture completely. I don't think your lover's coming along and say, "Hey, let's hate together." But you do hate together sometimes.
You do hate together.
You do hate together, and I don't know if your wife destroys your reason, but maybe sometimes you have to destroy your own just to get through some days. But I don't know. It frighteningly made me think of what some people conceive of as the point of love, which is to finally complete themselves, as though they couldn't be without that completion. I don't know. I'm attracted to, but worry about Aristophanes' story, by the way. I'm not fully sure he was totally right. But I think a lot of people conceive of love that way, though, don't they?
I think they do. And what a depressing way to end this one. All right.
Love is a small mass movement that kills you. Goodbye, everyone.
Good luck. Don't ever love anyone or do anything. Just be free. I mean, it's kind of sad too. What Hoffer says freedom can promise you. What can freedom promise you? Not much. Not strength. Not happiness. Not even meaning. Right? But it's kind of a gamble, right? You have the chance for all of those things and still be yourself.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only way. You have to gamble with freedom to remain yourself, because otherwise you might get all those things, but you're not going to be you anymore, or at least not the self you were. You're going to be something else, which is kind of like a horror story. All right. That's all I have to say.
I'm done too. So next time we're going to
finish up the book.
Yep, finish this book up.
All right, until next time.
Yeah.